troops. The Cambodian government admits its defensive lines were overrun 40 miles from the capital of Phnom Penh. In South Vietnam, the communists shelled 77 Allied targets, their heaviest shelling since April 1st. Heavy fighting is also reported in the far northeast sector, the North Vietnamese control part of the area. They killed 7 Americans there, 12 South Vietnamese, and reportedly lost 219 dead of their own. The Saigon government announced its 15th annual stand-down for May 19th, that's Buddha's birthday. If both sides agree, the shooting will stop for 24 hours. Joint U.S. AFVN operations in the Fishhook region of Cambodia have begun to pay off. The effort to clear Cambodia of NVA sanctuaries and supply routes has turned up numerous caches of rice, equipment, and weaponry. The big find Sunday was made by Bravo Troop, 1st of the 9th Cav, during a mission 15 miles northeast of Khartoum in Cambodia. Some 200 cases of new SKS and AK-47 rifles were uncovered. Of the 4,000 rifles in that find, 1,000 were destroyed immediately. The remainder awaited destruction by airstrikes. Also in the cache were 15 50-gallon drums of gasoline. Alpha Troop, 1st of the 9th, uncovered a veritable supply dump in an action nearby. That cache uncovered consisted nearly of 121,000 pounds of rice, 3/4-ton trucks, 7 2.5-ton trucks, 13 3/4-ton trucks, 200 bicycle tires, 150 truck tires, and 450 gallons of oil. And 3 miles to the northeast of that find, another element of Alpha Troop uncovered 17,600 pounds more of rice. Other major finds included one credited to the H Troop of the 2nd Squadron, 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment. That one consisted of 24,000 pounds of rice and 8,000 pounds of salt, all of which were destroyed in place. Bravo Company, 2nd of the 7th, 1st Cav Division, found 5,000 pounds of rice 5 miles north of Khartoum on the Cambodian border. So far, American casualties are relatively light, consisting of 12 killed, 44 wounded. Enemy losses sustained under heavy air, artillery, and helicopter gunship activity, in addition to the ground troops and mechanized units, consists so far of 660 killed and another 118 detained. CBS newsman Dan Rather at the White House has more on those items discovered so far in Cambodia.
What are billed as significant discoveries of large enemy supply dumps are reported to the White House tonight from the Fishhook section of Cambodia. High administration sources claim the White House has been told that combined U.S. and South Vietnamese units are uncovering elaborate bunker complexes, trucks, mortars, rocket launchers, and other intermediate-sized weaponry, plus plenty of ammunition and rice. These are cumulative totals from early stages of the Allied drive. They have been passed along by administration sources within the past few hours as late new information. This follows nearly 3 days of reports from news correspondents in the field saying Allied forces were meeting only scattered resistance and finding little in what was supposed to have been headquarters for all communist military activities in South Vietnam. Nixon administration sources acknowledge that additional new pushes into Cambodia may occur. Also, high administration sources say additional airstrikes in the lower section of North Vietnam are possibilities, although reporters are cautioned that future bombings may involve fewer aircraft than Saturday's raid just above the North-South Vietnam border. Dan Rather, CBS News, Washington.
Cambodia is the prime issue as Congress gets back to work. In the Senate, the Foreign Relations Committee gathers to try to decide what to do in its relations with the president. Some members of that committee contemplate boycotting his cocktail hour invitation to the White House on Tuesday. They think it useless because he invited 50 members of Congress, precluding much except a presidential lecture. Dubs in both houses are trying to figure out some way to indicate their distaste for the Cambodian involvement. They admit, however, that any moves would be just symbolic rather than realistic. They include turning over the 1964 Gulf of Tonkin resolution used by President Johnson to step up the Vietnam War, voting against funds for the war, a congressional ban on U.S. troops being used in Cambodia or Laos, and so on. A weekend of demonstrations on a number of the nation's college campuses, most of the protests related to the U.S. involvement in Cambodia. At Kent State University in Ohio, a contingent of 500 National Guardsmen, armed with rifles and fixed bayonets, helped to disperse a crowd of 1,000 students there. The Guardsmen moved in after the students smashed windows and then set some fires on the campus and in the surrounding area. It was the third straight night of disorders there. On Saturday night, the ROTC building was destroyed by an apparently deliberate fire. At College Park, home of the University of Maryland, it was much the same story. More than 100 state troopers in riot gear stormed into a donut shop to arrest 28 persons. In Cleveland, Ohio, about 75 students occupied the ROTC offices on the Case Western Reserve University campus. The school president told the students that protesting is not the way to get out of Cambodia. While some students resorted to violence to demonstrate their disfavor with expansion of the war in Southeastern Asia, others met to map out plans for the coming week. Newspaper editors from 9 Eastern universities urged a student strike, not against the universities, but a strike by the entire university. 13 schools signed a 4-point resolution asking for a strike to protest the Cambodian decision. At Stanford University in California, 800 students met to discuss strike tactics. That group advocates a nonviolent university shutdown beginning today. In New York, Columbia University President Andrew Cordier agreed to a one-day moratorium on classes today. He said the university would remain open, but those who wished to participate in the moratorium would be excused from class. A committee of students at Rutgers University is calling for a boycott against the Coca-Cola Company. The committee alleges the students can reach the government through business. Yale University President Kingman Brewster was glad that the rally there is over and also proud of those who participated.
Relief, exhaustion, exhilaration make it hard to think straight or speak very clearly. My most profound feeling is one of admiration and gratitude to everyone concerned, with the obvious exception of a small group of roving, willful troublemakers. They were the challenge. The response was magnificent, from the Panthers to the police. I'm proudest of all of our students, especially our band of student marshals, who had the dual job of deterring willful violence and of calming potential panics. I saw them work under extreme pressure and provocation, both Friday and Saturday night, and they were truly heroic. Best of all, I think, is not just keeping the peace, but the fact that I have the strong impression that hate has been lessened rather than increased as a result of this experience.
In the Middle East, military spokesmen in Tel Aviv say Israeli troops killed 21 Arab guerrillas in a clash during the night in the northern Jordan Valley. Israeli details of the fight were sketchy, but it was described as one of the biggest clashes ever between Israeli troops and infiltrating Arab guerrillas. In Cairo, a military spokesman said Egyptian heavy artillery blasted Israeli military targets along a 15-mile front on the Suez Canal's southern sector. Former Vice President Humphrey arrived in Tel Aviv today and said that he believes President Nixon should and will sell Israel more planes to defend herself against the Soviet-backed Arab states. Mr. Humphrey is in Israel for a 4-day visit, during which he will talk with Premier Golda Meir and Foreign Minister Abba Eban. Defense Secretary Melvin Laird says abolishment of the draft is at least 3 years away. Dennis Kahane has more on that story.
Defense Secretary Melvin Laird says that he believes that Congress, in the interest of national security, will extend the draft for at least 2 years beyond its expiration date, July 1st, 1971. Mr. Laird and Laird said that one incentive for increased volunteerism proposed by the Nixon administration is a 20% pay increase for enlisted men with less than 2 years of service, effective next January 1st. Laird said that no one can predict with certainty when draft calls can come down to zero, but that the timing depends on progress in Vietnamization, military strength reductions following withdrawal, and enlistment levels. Dennis Kahane, Washington.
Senator Edmund Muskie, who's running for re-election, did a little campaigning on Sunday. Speaking to graduates of the Maine Maritime Academy in Castine, he said at least 1 million tons of oil is spilled or leaked onto heavily traveled ocean lanes each year, but he said that amount is only 0.1% of all transported oil. Former Governor George Wallace says both major parties hope that he's going to be defeated.
The National Republicans and National Democrats both want me defeated. Paul Harvey has said so on at least 2 or 3 occasions himself on his nationwide telecast. So my election is going to spotlight the school issue, and as one governor of a southern state the other night told me, it's not only a vote from Alabama, it'll be a vote from my state and every other state in the South. So specifically, I'm going to help you in that regard.
The man who succeeded Wallace's late wife as governor has waged an active campaign for a full term of his own in office, and Governor Albert Brewer has done it without ever mentioning Wallace's name.
Remember that we're running a positive campaign on a clean basis for the highest office in our state, and treat these things for what they are: desperate, panic, last-minute attempts to reverse the tide.
The U.S. Supreme Court opens an inquiry into capital punishment tonight, and the result of its action could affect about 500 prisoners now sitting in cells on death rows across the entire country. The court meets to hear arguments on 2 questions raised by William Maxwell, 31-year-old Negro convicted of assaulting a white woman. The questions are, should a jury decide guilt and punishment at a single sitting, known as the single verdict procedure? Should the jury have absolute